A study published in the journal Biological Perspective asked participants to take part in a stressful activity, such as giving a speech or taking a complicated math quiz. The participants who had vaginal intercourse before a stressful task had lower levels of stress and lower blood pressures when compared to people who had no sex, those who masturbated, and those who had sexual contact without intercourse. On the other hand, researchers at the University of Göttingen in Germany found that people with a less than robust sex life tend to take on more work to compensate for their lack of fulfillment in the bedroom. The study asked 32,000 people to describe their sex and work habits. The researchers found that 36% of men and 35% of women who have sex only once a week plunge themselves into their work. The more work you have, the more stress you have, and the more stress you have, the less sex you have. It's a truly vicious cycle. Humans turning their heads from left to right at 90 degrees in each direction is normal. To put this into perspective, an owl can rotate its head an amazing 270 degrees. It is creepy enough when owls do this, but seeing a human turn his head past 90 degrees has to be one of the creepiest things imaginable that somebody could do with his body. This is Martin Laurello, and it's obvious why he was called the human owl. He could pivot his head to 120+ degrees over his shoulder and look behind him with his body still facing forward. Martin's ability to rotate his head like that is called a biological rarity, which was the main ingredient for working as a sideshow freak and traveling with the circus, carnivals, and freak shows back in the 1800s and early 1900s. The lacrimal glands are serous-type exocrine glands that secrete lacrimal fluid onto the surfaces of the conjunctiva and cornea of the eye. The lacrimal fluid acts to clean, nourish and lubricate the eyes. It forms tears when produced in excess. The lacrimal apparatus is the system responsible for the drainage of lacrimal fluid from the orbit. After secretion, lacrimal fluid circulates across the eye and accumulates in the lacrimal lake located in the medial canthus of the eye. From here, it drains into the lacrimal sac via a series of canals. The lacrimal sac is the dilated end of the nasolacrimal duct and is located in a groove formed by the lacrimal bone and frontal process of the maxilla. Lacrimal fluid drains down the nasolacrimal duct and empties into the inferior meatus of the nasal cavity. The Amasunzu traditional hairstyle is hands down one of the most creative ever. Still being worn today, it was and still is a symbol of pride in Rwanda. The Amasunzu hairstyle represented different roles and stages in the life of women and men. When warriors wore the style, it symbolized strength and bravery. Worn by women, it usually marked marital status and virginity. The young woman wore it before they were married. After marriage, some women let their hair grow freely. Achieved through a careful ritual that involved cutting the hair at the sides, and then allowing it to grow towards the middle, Amasunzu was definitely a labor of love. Children would look forward to being old enough to take on the hairstyle, and villages would even have competitions on the best designs. Today, growing your hair into the Amasunzu style is a gesture of pride, and for the young men who do so, it's a form of self-realization. Finding the car in Seinäjoki, north of Helsinki, police saw that the mosquito had recently sucked blood and decided to send the insect for analysis. The DNA found from laboratory tests matched a man on the police register. The suspect denies stealing the car and says he was just hitchhiking a lift with a man. The car was stolen in June in the town of Lapua, some 380 kilometers (235 miles) north of the Finnish capital, the AFP news agency reports. It was recovered several weeks later in Seinäjoki, about 25 kilometers from where it disappeared. Sakari Palamäki, the police inspector in charge of the case, said it was the first time Finnish police had used an insect to solve a crime. It is not usual to use mosquitoes. In training we were not told to keep an eye on mosquitoes at crime scenes, he said. It is not easy to find a small mosquito in a car. This just shows how thorough the crime scene investigation was, he added. A prosecutor must now decide if the sample is strong enough for charges to be pressed. Bill Haast was the owner and operator, from 1947 until 1984, of the Miami Serpentarium, a tourist attraction south of Miami, Florida, where he extracted venom from snakes in front of paying customers. After closing the Serpentarium, he opened the Miami Serpentarium Laboratories, a facility in Punta Gorda, Florida that produced snake venom for medical and research use. Haast extracted venom from venomous snakes from the time he was a boy. Haast physically extracted venom from venomous snakes by holding them by the head and forcing them to bite a rubber membrane covering a vial. As a result of handling these snakes, Haast had been bitten 172 times by mid-2008, all of which but the last few were validated by the Guinness Book of World Records, for surviving the most deadly snake bites, a distinction Haast disliked as he did not think being bitten was a goal to be attained or admired. Soon after opening the Serpentarium, Haast began experimenting with building up an acquired immunity to the venom of king, Indian, and Cape cobras by injecting himself with gradually increasing quantities of venom he had extracted from his snakes, a practice called Mithridatism. In 1954 Haast was bitten by a common, or blue, kite. At first, he believed his immunization to cobra venom would protect him from the kite venom, and continued with his regular activities for several hours. However, the venom eventually did affect him, and he was taken to a hospital where it took him several days to recover. A kite anti-venom was shipped from India, but when it arrived after a 48-hour flight, he refused to accept it. He received his first cobra bite less than a year after he started his immunization program. During the 1950s, he was bitten by cobras about 20 times. His first king cobra bite was in 1962. Haast was also bitten by a green mamba. Many times Haast donated his blood to be used in treating snake bite victims when a suitable anti-venom was not available. More than 20 of those individuals recovered. Marine iguanas are found only on the Galapagos Islands located in the Pacific Ocean near Ecuador, South America. They are the only lizards that are able to live and feed in the sea. Marine iguanas are vegetarians. They feed on seaweed and algae which they find on rocks, in tidal pools, or in the sea. The adult males can grow to over 5 feet long and the females up to almost 4 feet. On land, marine iguanas are rather clumsy lizards, but in the water they are powerful, easy-moving swimmers. Their flattened tails and spiky dorsal fins are perfect for swimming. They have long, sharp claws they use to cling tightly to rocks in the strong currents and waves along the shore. Marine iguanas have flat snouts which makes it easier for them to scrape algae off the rocks with their sharp teeth. While underwater, marine iguanas are in danger of being eaten by sharks. The sharks have excellent hearing and can actually hear the heartbeat of an iguana up to meters away. God gave the marine iguanas an amazing defense system to protect them that they can deliberately stop their heart from beating. They have been known to stop their hearts for up to 45 minutes without any harmful effects. Evolution teaches that the marine iguana somehow learned this trick by chance and accident over a long period of time to protect it from its enemies. The flying grenade is a drone 40 modular quadcopter. It can be either a scout or a loitering grenade. In action, it looks goofy, like someone saw a Sky Dancer flying toy from the 1990s and decided it would be a great basis for a bomb. What sets the Drone 40 apart from a host of other small drone designs is the long, vertical fuselage. Unlike most quadcopters, which are wider than they are all, the Drone 40 is alien in appearance. The shape of its body, and the name, both refer to the 40mm grenade launcher, a standardized way to hurl an explosive in battle. The Drone 40 can be both hand-tossed or it can be fired as a grenade from a launcher. Every Drone 40 is battery-powered, and depending on weight and flight time, can be airborne for something between 30 and 60 minutes. At its fastest, the drone can travel nearly 45 miles per hour, and Defentex claims it can operate at a range of up to 12 miles, far eclipsing the gap in rifle ranges. Hachiko the dog was more than a pet. As the canine companion to a university professor, Hachiko patiently waited for his owner's return from work at their local train station each evening. But when the professor died suddenly one day at work, Hachiko was left waiting at the station for nearly a decade. Every day after his master passed, Hachiko the dog returned to the train station, often to the chagrin of the employees who worked there. But his fidelity soon won them over, and he became an international sensation and a symbol of loyalty. People from all over the country came to visit Hachiko, who had become a symbol of loyalty and something of a good luck charm. Hachiko's great vigil finally came to an end on March 8, 1935, when he was found dead in the streets of Shibuya at the age of 11. Scientists, who weren't able to determine his cause of death until 2011, found that the dog Hachiko likely died of a filaria infection and cancer. Hachiko's passing made national headlines. He was cremated and his ashes were placed next to Professor Yuno's grave in Aoyama Cemetery in Tokyo. The master and his loyal dog had finally reunited. In order to have a double pregnancy, you'd have to either ovulate while pregnant or have 2 uteri. Both of those scenarios, again, are highly unlikely. Ovulating during pregnancy happens so infrequently doctors haven't been able to study why it may occur. While uterine abnormalities aren't quite as uncommon, doctors typically see people with a divided or partially formed uterus, not two separate uteri. This condition, called didelphic uterus, is rare. While it can cause a double pregnancy, it's more likely to result in a miscarriage than two pregnancies at the same time.